I to do this. I was an 18-year-old kid. I was kicked out of school when I was 16 years old. My family have always been bankrupt. We've never had Christmases or birthdays. I had absolutely no money, and I just dropped out of university. And from day one, I kept a diary online of my journey. And you see the journey of an entrepreneur in my diary notes. All of these diaries are completely private, but I thought I'd share them today. I start optimistic, and as the journey unfolds, I'm looking for money to build my idea. I don't know what to call my idea. I'm off to Oxford in this diary entry to meet a potential business partner. I'm having epiphanies and strategies, and my optimism is really, really high. On one day in my diary, it was very, very significant to me. I got on the train going to Oxford, which is about 100 miles away from where I was, and the train attendant, as I stood onto the train, came up to me and said, "This is first class, mate." He didn't know what ticket I had, but presumably he had judged me based on how I looked, and he had thought, there's no way that someone that looks like me could be in first class. And so in my diary on this day, I said, one day I will turn to the train attendant and I will show him a first class ticket. And I carried on. And you see the ups and the downs in my diaries. And this is again the journey of the entrepreneur. On this day, I went home for the first time in about a year. And as I walked in, my mum was really happy to see me. And I thought, what the hell is going on? It turns out my dad had told her, my dad wants an easy life, my dad had told her that I'd gone back to university. I told her that I had still dropped out. We had a massive argument and I ended up leaving the house and going back up to Manchester. On this day, I write that life is a roller coaster. I'm annoyed at myself because I had £14 left to my name and I spent it on McDonald's when I knew that I could have bought bread. On this day, I just write, where am I? I'm in a small dark house in one of the roughest cities, roughest areas of the country. I'm stumbling around at 10 o'clock, I have no electricity in my house, and I'm bumping into some guy from Cameroon who refused to put clothes on. I didn't know who he was, but that was my situation at the time. And when I said that I didn't have any money, I lied. I had minus money. I had about £8,000 in immediate debts by the age of 19. Here's a photo I took of my credit cards that I had chopped up. Here's a photo I took of my desk in my room in Moss Side in Manchester. It's a pile of bailiff letters showing how much money I owe to how many people. People saying that they're coming to get me to take my things away. I got a county court judgment against my name at age 19 because I couldn't pay back all of these bills and the credit cards that I had. Here's what I was eating. This is a concoction of powdered oats mixed with water. And it tastes disgusting, but it was the only thing that would stop the pain in my stomach and the only thing that I could really afford. And I'd lost about 2.5 stone in weight. Here's a photo I took of my laptop, the laptop that I was going to build this huge social platform on. If you look very closely, all of the keys are missing, the screen is broken, and in the charger, you'll see a small silver ball. Almost every other day, that's a Christmas ball. I would solder it into the wiring to get the wiring to work because I could not afford the £10 to get a new charger. And every 30 minutes I would forget, I would move the laptop and it would all come undone. And sometimes when my laptop didn't work, I just used whatever I could find. So this is a photo I took of a pizza box where I've sketched out the designs for my website on the back of a pizza box. And after about a year of doing this, I decided it was finally the time to open a business bank account. So I went off to NatWest, the bank, and I said, I want to open a business bank account. The lady at the counter said, we've checked your file, your credit rating is so bad you can't open a business bank account. And I thought, that's fine. I had a bank account with them, I've let them down, I'll go somewhere else. I went to another bank, they said, we're sorry, you've never banked with us, but there's this thing called a credit rating, you can't open a business bank account. I went to another bank, and another bank, and another bank, and they all said the same thing. At 19 years old, I didn't know what this meant. I went home that night and got into bed and I cried. Because to me, that meant that my dream of being an entrepreneur was over. I couldn't see past that. I thought that was the end. And I remember being in bed that night and I got my laptop and I pulled it towards me. I went on YouTube, I typed in the word documentary and I clicked on the first documentary that came up. And it was a documentary called I Am Alive. And it's the real life story of the survival of 50 rugby players who flew across the Chilean mountains on a plane. They ended up crashing in the middle of the mountains, and half of them died upon impact. Here's a real photo from that survival movie. And this documentary changed my life in many ways. These 50 rugby players had flown across the mountains, half of them have died straight away. They get 2 days into being in the middle of this huge snowy mountain crevice, and they realize that they've got no food. They're starving. They get 10 days in, and they realize, by listening to a radio, that the search for them has been called off. They are all presumed dead. There's 28 of them in the middle of a mountain, and everybody thinks they're dead. They get 15 days in, and you'll only know this if you've been in a desperate situation. When you're in desperate situations, you do things that you wouldn't ever expect yourself to do. They realize if they're going to survive, they have to eat something. And all they have is the dead bodies of their friends and their fellow rugby players who died when the plane crashed. So 30 days in, they start eating the dead bodies of their friends and their family. Disgusting, right? But in desperate situations, you do desperate things. And in my situation, I was leaving the house, going to takeaways in the hope that someone had just left some food somewhere. They get 40 days in, and an avalanche comes down the mountain and kills 10 more of them. There's only 16 of them left at this point. The leader of the group, called Nando, his mum and his sister had come on this trip, and they had been part of the casualties that had died upon impact. Nando does not want to eat the body of his mum and his sister. So he says, I'm going to walk out of this mountain if it kills me. He gets as much human flesh as he can together, and he sets off with 2 of his comrades. They think, once we walk to the top of the mountain that we're trapped in, we'll be able to see which way to go. They spend 3 days just getting to the top of the nearest mountain, and when they look out, much to their dismay, all they can see for as far as the eye can see is snowy mountain upon snowy mountain upon snowy mountain. He looks back down at the crash site, and he can see the bodies of his mum and his sister, and he makes the same decision that I made in that moment. He decides he would rather keep going than to concede for a life that wasn't true to him and to do something that he didn't want to do. He didn't make a decision, he removed the decision. And when you remove the decision, and when you can't go back, it becomes much easier to go forward. And so he sent his comrades back, he took their human flesh, and he walked, and he walked, and he walked. He walked 100 miles in the snow, ill, without food. And after 10 days of walking, because he couldn't go back, he collapsed by a river. And it just so happened that as he collapsed by the river, a man came past on a horse. That man wrapped a stone in paper, threw it to him with a pencil, and he wrote the story. 16 of us died in that plane, 16 of us are left from the plane crash. All of my comrades are back there, and because of that, every single one of them was saved, because he couldn't go back. That's exactly how I felt in that moment. And as I said, it wasn't that he made a decision, he removed the decision. Because there's a very interesting thing that the mind does. It tells you where your limits are. And when you remove that, you can go much further than you ever believed. Really interesting example from this week in my life. Every time I go to the gym in the morning, I always run 4 kilometers, right? Every single time. And I run at speed 11. And I landed in Boston about 2 days ago, north of New York, and I went to the gym at 8 a.m. And as I got to the gym, I said, right, I'm going to run 4 kilometers today. When I usually run 4 kilometers, by about 3 kilometers, I am exhausted. And I do that thing that we all do. My eyes are glued to the distance. I'm running, and when I get to about 3.5 kilometers, I feel the pain in my legs, I'm struggling to breathe, and I'm counting down the distance in my mind. I'm glued on it. This day, when I got to the gym in Boston, much to my surprise, the running machine didn't show me the distance while I was running. So I think to myself, how am I going to know when I get to 4 kilometers? Of course, I'll feel how I always feel. I'll feel exhausted. Usually when I step off at 4K, the room is literally spinning. So I start running, and I'm running, and I'm running, and I'm running, and I'm lost in my music. I didn't even know how long I'd been running for. I keep running, and I look at the time, and I think, okay, I've got a meeting at 9 o'clock, so I need to hurry up. I increase the speed past my usual running speed, and I keep running, and I'm not really feeling tired at all. I'm not feeling exhausted. My breathing is fine. I increased the speed to 13, and I just sprinted, and then I stopped it. 9 kilometers. I looked at the screen in the after report of my run. It said I'd ran 9 kilometers, and I felt better than I usually feel. The truth is, I had told myself I could run 4 kilometers every day. So my brain had started to believe it. So when we got close to 4 kilometers, my brain told my body that it was exhausted. And that's synonymous with what most of us do in our lives. On that day, my mind had no way of knowing how close it was to the limit it had set itself. So my body made the decision for my body for a change. And because of that, I was able to run more than double the distance at a faster speed. I couldn't believe it. And what this taught me about fear and limits is that the only limits we really have are the ones we believe. Limits are like fears. They're often just an illusion. And here's a really sort of understandable, simplified example of this. Here is a video of an ant. If you draw a circle around an ant, it will not go past the edge of that circle, because it now believes that that's as far as it can go. If you make that circle smaller, it won't go past the edge of that, because it tells itself that it can't. Every single person in this room, whether you believe it or not, whether you know it or not, you have drawn a circle around yourself. You've told yourself how successful you can be, how far you can go, and who you can become. Whether you believe it or not, you have. And really interestingly, we've always just come in just below where we thought we could. And with this in mind, the advice, believe in yourself, is really stupid advice. And I'll tell you why. Because that's not how belief works. If I told everybody in this room right now that if I had your mum and your dad here on stage, and I had a gun to their head, and I told you I'm going to pull the trigger unless you start to believe that I am God. Nobody in this room could do that. You could only lie to me. Because in order to believe something, in order to believe in yourself, you need evidence. That's how belief works. It would cost your mum and your dad's life because you can't believe something that you don't. And that's how belief works. So if you want to believe in yourself, you have to go outside of that circle. That's how we build belief. I now know that I can run 9 kilometers in the gym, but I didn't know that until I experienced a broken treadmill that took me outside of my own preconceived limit. And this is the story of my life. It's the story of a young kid that believed he could go further than his circle. My next big challenge in building my company was I needed to contact lots of very important people. And when I come to making my decisions in marketing and in business, I always start with what I know to be true. What do we know about very important people? They get lots of emails, they get lots of phone calls, they have a lot of people like me asking them for things. So instead of sending emails, I thought a little bit outside the box. I sent them gold metallic envelopes. When you get a gold envelope in the post, you probably think you've won something. They're synonymous with game shows and prizes and things like that. So when I sent my gold envelopes to people, they would knock out their bills and everything else, and they would open my letter first. And this had tremendous success. I remember sending a gold envelope to Panasonic saying, I need £10,000 worth of free equipment, and within 48 hours, Lee at Panasonic sends me an email saying, hey Steve, loved your envelope, we've sent £10,000 worth of free camcorders for you. It wasn't just knowing how to approach somebody, you also need to know how to sell. And we often talk about selling a pen. You can say a pen is $1 and it's an item that we use to write with, or you can say a pen is $1 and it's an item that generations upon generations have used to communicate with their loved ones since the last century began. Both items are $1, the perceived value is completely different. That's what I did with my website. It wasn't a website, it wasn't a student notice board, Every talk I did, every letter I sent talked about me giving students the power of community. And I would spend hours talking about the power of community. Same value, different perceived value. One of the gold envelopes I sent was trying to raise investment. So I sent a gold envelope and an email on the 2nd of September. 2 days later, Alistair Milne, who got my email, said to me he would give me some of the money to launch my website if I could find a team, just by sending a gold envelope and an email. It reminded me of a situation when I was 16 years old and I saw the headmaster of my school in my common room flicking through magazines, trying to decide which vending machines to buy for my school. They were going to spend £3,000 per vending machine. When I thought about what I knew to be true, and we call this reasoning from first principles, it's ignoring the crowd and making up your own solutions. We had a school of 2,000 students. That's 2,000 customers. Vending machine companies should be paying us to put their machines in our school, and we should be making revenue from the sales. I told my headmaster this, he didn't believe me. So I went to the computer room and I sent 5 emails to local coffee machine companies, and it just so happened one of those emails went to the CEO of a local company who used to go to our school and was looking to give back. The same day in period 5, on my mother's life, I was pulled out of my lesson. They didn't even respond to my email. They pulled me out of my lesson and a guy had arrived to measure the machines. Still to this day, my school, Plymstock School, makes 20% of all of the revenue from all of the machines, and we got all of the machines for free. So people look at these things. People look at this and they say, luck. It must be luck. A word I've heard so much in my life, luck. The truth is about luck that when very consistent hard work meets opportunity, it looks so much like luck. But if you look a little bit closer, that first email that I sent was at 2:30 a.m. on a Sunday. What's lucky about that? What was everyone else doing at 2:30 a.m. on that Sunday when I was starving in my bedroom? Luck? I used to hate Justin Bieber when I was 18. I was so jealous. Because of social media and the way the internet works, this is all I'd ever seen of Justin Bieber. Selling out shows, he gets all of the girls, he's so rich, he is so lucky. I hated him. Until one day, I saw this. This is Justin Bieber at 8 years old, busking alone on stairs in Canada with no fans, with no money for dollar bills. How dare I call that luck? The reason we call that luck is because we're making excuses for ourselves. How dare I call that luck? Two and a half years after I'd started this journey to build this website, my website was finally ready to go live. And on that day, I became a marketing person for the first time ever. I didn't have any money to market it. I had about £4,000, and I knew I needed 1 million people to come to my website for anybody to consider it a success. My aim was to get 1 million people a month. So I emailed everybody, I contacted all my friends, my family, and I said to them, Wall Park is finally live. And nobody came. Nobody came. 3 years of hard work, blood, sweat, tears, nobody came. And then I learned my first real lesson about life, marketing, and everything in between. Nobody cares about you as much as you care about you. Everybody is busy. They're having a hard time at home. They might have a flat tire. It's raining outside. They're on the way to a job they hate. They're busy. They've got bills. They've got problems. Their friends have got problems. So when I pop up and tell them, come to my website, of course they don't care. And if you create your marketing from a perspective that people for some reason should care about you or know how wonderful you are, you will always fail. I don't care about Rolex. I've got a Rolex, but I don't care about the founders. I don't care how hard they worked. I care what Rolex will do for me when I put one on my wrist. And really, my job as a marketeer was to win this lucrative and very elusive thing called attention. And so I went off on that journey. I tried flyers, I tried posters, I took ads out in the student newspapers. Nobody came. I started reading about why this was. Young people apparently don't have attention anymore. This is what everybody told me. So I tried making my marketing material more concise and short. I said, you can win £100 if you come to my website. Nobody came. And then I started paying attention. Once again, I tried to use more energy to figure out what was true. And if you want to build good solutions to marketing or anything else today, you have to start with what you know is true today and ignore convention's way of doing things. I took 100 pizza vouchers, I went down to the university and I exchanged these pizza vouchers, which were free, I got them from Domino's Pizza, for a screenshot of the settings section in your phone. It tells me where you're spending all your time. In 2010, this was not obvious. It is now, but the answer was social media. So I thought I need to own as much real estate on social media as I possibly can. So I went on Twitter, I typed in the word student. The first Twitter page that came up had 5,000 followers at the time. It was started by a kid called Dominic McGregor. I told Dominic McGregor, meet me 100 miles from his university, in the middle of where me and him were. He met me there. I sat him down, I said, Dom, I need you to drop out of university. I can pay you £500 a month and we're going to build all of the biggest social media pages for students. Much to Dominic's mother's anger, Dominic was very persuadable and he dropped out of university immediately. He moved from Scotland to Manchester and we spent all summer building the world's biggest social media pages for students. By the end of summer, 11 months since I launched, we had 4 million students following us on Facebook and Twitter. And thank you. We were driving 33,000 people on average a day to my website just by posting stuff from my website onto these pages. We were getting over 1 million people coming to my website every single month. But at the end of the day, we were a business. And so when it came to making money, about a year after we'd launched, we were approached by Spotify, and Spotify said, we've got this great offer for students, can we be on Wall Park? I said to Spotify, you don't need to be on Wall Park, all of the attention is on social media. I have 4 million students there. They thought this was a crazy idea. Back then, brands didn't even have their own social media pages. They laughed at us, but I put Spotify onto my social media pages, and it was the single most successful campaign Spotify had run with any media publisher at that time. Huge success, right? But to me, why do you need Wall Park then? You can just put brands on social media. I believe that social media would become the website, the destination, the community, at a time when people didn't really think about that in terms of social media. And so at 21 years old, I quit, and I went around the world meeting every young person, just like Dominic, that had built big social media pages around anything. There was 40 of them that I met in total. I hired every single one of them and I acquired all of their social media pages. I owned 400 social media pages. The biggest food pages, the biggest sports pages, the biggest fitness pages, the biggest cupcake page, 2 million people following it on Instagram, Pomsky dogs. You name a topic, travel, gaming, anything. We owned huge communities with millions of people following it under those niches. These pages were started by kids in their bedroom. A kid called Connor, that was 17 years old, had 17 million followers. He was living at home with his mum and he didn't know how to pay his bills. I said, Connor, come with me. I'll give you a real job as far as your mum's concerned, and you can do what you love doing every day. This page here was called Sport, started by a kid in a university in the UK. He was just tweeting about sports, it blew up. I met him, we acquired the channel, and it's grown to 15 million followers. Student Problems, which Dominic started, went from 5,000 followers when I met him to 11 million students. It's the single biggest community of students on the internet today. We have a Facebook group with 500,000 students here called Student Problems as well. Love Travel is the biggest in its space. Be Fit is the biggest fitness community on Facebook. Love Food has 11 million people following it now. We acquired all of the biggest social gaming channels online. We went to Fremantle Media and bought all of their digital assets last year, 8 big football YouTube channels. We have 81 million followers in total, 24 months after I launched Wall Park. And with this, we created something called the Social Chain Group, which is 2 companies, 2 different teams, 5 offices around the world. Social Chain, which is one of the world's leading social-first marketing agencies, and Media Chain, which is one of the world's largest social publishers. To put this in context, Social Chain works with all of the world's biggest brands. Our clients are Coca-Cola, Apple, Amazon, you name it, we work with that brand. 250 members of staff full-time, and it's taken us 3 years and 11 months. Media Chain, at the end of last year, in 1 month, did 2.5 billion video views on the internet. 2.5 billion video views. That's more than Time Warner and the Walt Disney Company. One of the big things in our space, and I think it's probably relevant to all of you in this audience, is influencer marketing. So I wanted to talk a little bit about influencer marketing before I leave the stage. We live in a really interesting time, right? There's this word called fake news, and it's spread across the world. And what it's done, as it's grown as a topic, it's changed what we believe to be true and how much we question things. The term fake news started in January 2017, and now 5 million people alone on Twitter say the term fake news every month. From January 2017, the world started caring about what was true more than ever before. And this isn't just politics, this is everything. Authenticity as a topic has been rising continuously for the last 10 years. But from January 2017, what's authentic became more important than ever before. We live in the age of authenticity. If you want to win as a marketeer, you need to be authentic, and I'm going to explain that. When we started doing influencer marketing back in 2013, 2014, we just worked with big name celebrities. But because consumers are now much more aware that everything is a sale, these celebrities like Kim Kardashian are trying to sell you things, the believability has vanished. In 2016, we start working with Instagrammers. About 90% of our work is now with Instagrammers in 2016. Big Instagrammers. In 2017, January 2017 again, this term emerges out of nowhere, micro-influencers. These are influencers with smaller followings, and 90% of our work becomes with micro-influencers because they are more believable than any other type of influencer. Why is that? Because they respond, they reply. They're more likely to be considered a friend, which is to this day still the most believable purchase driver in your life than any other type of influencer. And we've done big studies on this. Some brands understand this, and they're turning their customers into a tribe. Fashion Nova now have this hashtag NovaBabe. When you buy their products, if you go online and post that you've bought it and use the hashtag NovaBabe, you can win. All they're doing is making their customers, who are their most believable influencers, work for them. Coca-Cola did this in a very simple way. They just wrote your name on the side of a Coke can. It appeals to your sense of identity. Everybody goes on social media and starts taking a photo and uploading it, and they got hundreds of millions in free marketing. When Starbucks write your name on the side of a coffee cup, again, it appeals to your sense of identity, but also, if you upload that to your social media, you're telling all of your friends that you're the type of person that spends $4 on a cup of coffee. You're showing off, because that's an aspirational brand. Completely free, but delivered hundreds of millions in free marketing. In the age of authenticity, real bodies with real people are more important, and that's how you build brand trust. The CEO of a company called Everlane does it in a different way. Whenever their prices that they pay to their suppliers drops, he'll write a letter telling you, the amount we pay for our products has dropped, so I'm dropping all of the prices today because that's the right thing to do. In an era where we don't believe people, this is how you build brand trust. Lastly, I could stand here for hours talking about marketing tips and strategies, but I wanted to leave you with the way of thinking, because marketing and social media changes every single day. So if you can embrace this way of thinking, then I'll never need to tell you a tip or a strategy. If you look back on my story, starting at 16, deciding that I wouldn't need school, 17, deciding that we didn't need to pay for coffee machines, they should pay us. At 18, deciding that I wouldn't need university if I was going to become an entrepreneur, because who was I going to show this degree to? At 19, deciding that the way to get investors isn't by writing emails like everybody else, I should send gold envelopes. And then when it came to marketing my company, at 20 years old, deciding that the traditional way of doing things wasn't going to work because everybody was doing it, and I was going to create my own way. The pattern is, I write my own blueprint. It takes so much more energy. It's so much more risky. And as Elon Musk says, this is the only way to truly innovate. And if you want to be great, you have to give more energy to writing your own solutions, because the solutions that the crowd give you, those results have been exhausted already. You have to write your own blueprint. And if you embrace that, I'll never need to tell you anything about marketing. Focus on what you know to be true and create solutions from there. We have 5 offices around the world. As I said, the press say wonderful things about us. Our clients say even more wonderful things about us. And I know this convention today is all about feeling the connection. So I just wanted to say that me and my mum have never had a better connection. Thank you. Thanks.